At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister raised her glass and called me the CEO of being single and paying for everyone else. Everyone laughed except me. I'd paid their rent, their medical bills, their surprise emergencies. I'd even paid for the dinner they were eating, and in return, they laughed. So I stood up, calm, steady, and I said, "Tonight is the last time." No one saw it coming, but what came next changed everything. Thanksgiving that year began just like it always did. The smell of roasted turkey and spiced pie filled the air. Country music played faintly from the old kitchen speaker. The Maxwell house, our small wooden home on the outskirts of Knoxville, looked exactly the same as it had every year since I could remember. I, Erin Maxwell, 35 years old, took my usual seat at the end of the long farmhouse table. I was the one who'd paid for everything, again. The turkey, the pies, the side dishes, even the heating bill that Mom and Dad quietly avoided mentioning last month. I paid for all of it, like I always had, and no one said a word. They passed bowls and traded jokes. Nobody asked if I'd eaten. Nobody said thank you. I was used to that part. Then Sam, my younger sister, stood up, glass of champagne in hand. She was always the star, loud, charismatic, a walking sparkler. I expected her usual dramatic toast, but this time her words landed like a slap across the room. "To Erin," she said brightly, "CEO of being single and paying for everyone else." The room erupted in laughter. My uncle banged the table with his fist. Someone snorted into their wine. Even Mom chuckled. I didn't, I just blinked. I wasn't shocked by the words themselves. I was used to being the punchline. What hit me was the silence underneath the laughter. How no one flinched, no one said, "Hey, that's not fair." Not one person looked in my direction. That was the moment I saw it clearly. To them, I wasn't a daughter, not a sister. I was a walking debit card with a quiet smile. So, as dessert was served, apple pie, I think, I set my fork down gently. I stood up, calm, composed. And I said, "Tonight's the last time. I'm not paying for this anymore." A pause. Then I nodded toward the restaurant manager standing by the door. I had asked him earlier to bring the checkbook discreetly when I signaled. He stepped forward, silent and professional, carrying the leather folder that held the bill. Heads turned. The room went still. I signed it without a fuss. Then I turned back to the table and added, clearly, but without raising my voice. Not the dinners, not the car insurance, not the condo bills, not the family health fund. Starting tonight, it's off my books. Sam's smile faltered. Dad shifted in his chair but didn't speak. Mom's mouth opened halfway, then closed. The others, the cousins, the aunts and uncles, just stared like something sacred had just been shattered. Sam was the first to leave. Her heels struck the floor sharply as she walked out. A few others followed. I stayed until the end, watching the staff clear half-eaten pies and untouched coffee. I hadn't taken more than 3 bites all evening. And still, I paid the bill. Not because they deserved it, but because I didn't want anyone saying I'd made a scene over money. It was never about the money. It was about the moment I realized I was the only one holding this family up, and that none of them ever looked to see if I was still standing. That night, after the dinner that broke everything open, I went home to my quiet apartment and didn't turn the lights on right away. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, keys still in my hand, jacket half buttoned. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I just felt stripped down, like someone had turned the volume down on the world, and now I could hear the weight of everything I'd been carrying. I walked to my desk, powered up the laptop, and opened the file I hadn't touched in over a year. FamilyLedger.xlsx, that's what I named it. Bland, unassuming, safe. But inside, it told the whole story. It started as a simple list, just dates, amounts, reasons. I'd made it after Sam's second eviction notice when I realized I needed to start keeping track, because no one else was going to. Row after row, the numbers stared back at me. $21,000 in rent and utility bills over 9 years. That included 3 separate apartments Sam couldn't afford, 2 electricity shutoffs, and a few "it'll just be this once" phone calls from Mom. $14,800 in medical bills and prescriptions. Dad's knee surgery, Mom's dental implants, a few things Sam needed after her bad fall that we never really talked about. $9,500 for Sam's organic cookie startup. A cute name, pretty packaging, 0 customers, lasted 5 months. $7,000 in car repairs. 2 breakdowns, 1 totaled Honda, 1 borrowed vehicle that came back with a cracked windshield and no explanation. $9,600 scattered across things no one ever wanted to explain. Late fees, unpaid credit cards, bail money, therapy sessions booked but never attended. The total? Just shy of $62,000. I sat back in my chair, arms crossed, staring at the number like it could speak. That figure didn't even include the big things, the condo down payment I helped with just to get her started, or the retainer I covered for a lawyer after one of Sam's misunderstandings. It didn't include birthday gifts, Christmas flights, grocery runs, emergency vet bills for a dog she couldn't afford but couldn't leave behind. And in return, I was called the cold one, the detached one, the uptight sister who didn't know how to just relax and enjoy family. I saved the file, attached it to an email, and sat there a full 5 minutes before typing the subject line. No body text, no explanation. Just 4 words, in case you forgot. And I hit send. I don't know what I expected to feel, maybe guilt, maybe fear. But what I felt was relief. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I was done pretending none of it happened. That spreadsheet had been waiting to be seen, just like me. 3 days passed. No replies, no phone calls, just silence. The kind that doesn't feel peaceful, just delayed. I went about my routines, checking emails, watering plants, working through client tickets. I told myself the quiet was a win, that maybe, finally, they understood. And then the envelope came. It arrived on a Thursday afternoon, tucked among bills and circulars. No return address, cream-colored. My name written in shaky block letters I knew instantly. Dad's handwriting. I stood in my hallway, mail still in hand, staring at it like it might detonate. I didn't open it right away. I poured tea, sat at the kitchen table, waited for my hands to stop shaking. When I finally tore the flap, the contents slid out in one soft stack. Papers, photocopies, and a note clipped on top. The note wasn't long, just a few lines. Erin, we've made mistakes. I've made mistakes, but you need to know what's going on. I didn't know where else to turn. Dad. That last line, I didn't know where else to turn. It hit harder than all the silence that came before. The first document was a statement from a joint account in my parents' names. It had been drained, slowly at first, then in bigger waves. Transfer after transfer, some labeled L. Maxwell, some marked emergency, others under storefront names I recognized from Sam's Instagram tags. A salon, a boutique, a wellness retreat she once posted about with the caption, deserved. I flipped to the next page. An email between my father and their financial advisor. Subject line, urgent, regarding mortgage. I read the words out loud, barely above a whisper. We're behind. I didn't realize how far. I've tried talking to Sam. She says she's handling it. But Erin can't know. She's done enough already. I stopped. She's done enough already. He never said that to me, not once, but now, there it was, on paper, in his own words. I leaned back in my chair, the heat from my tea long gone. The room suddenly felt too small. The home I grew up in, the modest 2-bedroom ranch with the screen door that never latched right, wasn't just mortgaged. It was weeks away from foreclosure. And all because they'd let Sam dig a hole so deep it had pulled everyone down with her. And they hadn't told me. Because they thought I'd done enough. But enough was never the point. Not for them. Not until I stopped being useful. I looked around my kitchen, the one I'd built on quiet independence, on stability, on sacrifice. And I realized this wasn't just about a cruel Thanksgiving toast. It was about years of quiet giving, years of being the one who showed up, filled the gap, solved the mess. And now I had a decision to make. I could walk away. Or I could do what I'd always done, step in. But this time on my terms. I made the call the next morning. Her name was Monica Green, late 40s, sharp voice, no small talk. She came highly recommended by a friend who'd used her during a brutal business split. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I brought everything. The spreadsheet, the bank statements, the printouts from Dad's envelope, even the file I'd emailed to the family, in case you forgot. Monica spread the papers across her desk without flinching. She read each page with a practiced stillness, flipping slowly, pausing here and there, but never reacting. When she finally looked up, she didn't ask me how I was feeling. She just said, "What you're describing isn't just unfair, it's patterned, financially, emotionally, and you've been funding it the entire time." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She tapped her pen against the edge of her legal pad. "They've learned to depend on your silence, your steadiness. If you want it to stop, you don't need a confrontation, you need structure." That word stayed with me, structure. I wasn't here for revenge. I didn't want to punish anyone. I just couldn't keep holding up a system that never once paused to check if I was okay. So we built a plan. The house came first, the one I grew up in, the one Dad had nearly lost without telling me. According to the financials, it had been refinanced twice, quietly. The latest loan was already months behind. If nothing changed, they'd lose it before spring. Monica laid it out plainly. "We'll buy it, under a private trust. You'll be the owner, but your parents will retain lifetime residence rights. They can't be evicted, but they also can't borrow against it again. Ever." She looked me in the eye. "You'll be protecting them, but you'll also be protecting yourself." I nodded, no hesitation. Then came the debt, credit cards, medical bills, 2 personal loans, one in Dad's name, one co-signed by Mom. Monica asked if I wanted to help. I said yes, but on one condition. Every transaction would be documented. No more quiet transfers, no more whispered asks. Every dollar would be signed, notarized, and tied to legal boundaries they couldn't wiggle past. Sam, she wasn't part of the plan. That was non-negotiable. Monica drafted everything within a week. I reviewed the documents one section at a time, terms, disclosures, signature lines. By the end, the folder in my lap felt heavier than the envelope Dad had mailed me. We sent the official notice to my parents the next morning. It was brief, clear, no emotions, no drama. You will not lose your home. You will be protected, but not in control. This is not punishment. This is a boundary. Dad didn't respond. Mom called 3 times. I didn't answer. Sam sent one text. You've lost your mind. I read it once, then deleted it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I wasn't cutting anyone out. I was just stepping out of the center. And that was the beginning of something I hadn't felt in years. Space. It was a Sunday afternoon, gray skies, no rain, just that heavy kind of stillness that presses against the windows like it's waiting for something. I was curled up on the couch, reading, half a glass of wine in hand, when I heard it. 3 knocks, firm, not rushed, not uncertain. I peeked through the peephole. It was Sam. No makeup, hair pulled up in a loose knot, oversized hoodie, no performance, no sparkle. Just Sam, raw and real. I opened the door halfway. She didn't smile. We need to talk. I didn't move, didn't say anything. She took that as permission and stepped inside, like she'd done her whole life, like my space was still hers by default. She stopped in the middle of the living room, arms crossed. So that's it? You just buy the house and cut everyone out? I didn't answer right away. She didn't wait. Do you even realize how that makes you look? Like some control freak who thinks she can fix everything with money? I stayed calm, collected. I walked over to the coffee table and picked up the folder with the trust documents. Held it out to her. Page 4. She didn't take it. I didn't know about the loan, she said quietly. That wasn't me. I looked at her, steady, even. Then explained the transfers, the boutique purchases, the salon appointments, the spa voucher. They were under your name. She looked at the folder again, like it might bite her. You could have told me, she said, softer now. You could have warned me. I blinked. I did. I set the folder down, sat back. Every time I paid your rent, every overdraft I covered, every time I picked up the phone at 1 a.m. and wired you money, that was me telling you. You just didn't hear it, because I never yelled. She exhaled hard, crossed her arms tighter like that would keep the truth out. So what now, you're done with me? I met her eyes. No, you were done with me. The moment you stood up at that dinner and made that toast. That was the moment you showed me exactly where I stood. She blinked fast. Her eyes were glassy, but she didn't cry. So now you get to play savior, and I get nothing? No, I said softly. You get what I had. You get to start from the ground, like I did. Silence. She looked down, then back up. You're really cutting me off. Not out of spite, I said, out of survival. She stood there for a beat. Then, what do I even have left? I didn't flinch, didn't soften. Whatever you choose to build. She turned to leave. No door slam, no dramatic exit. Just the sound of her footsteps down the hallway. I didn't follow, didn't call out. This time I didn't feel guilt. I felt something else. Space. Real quiet earned space. The kind you don't apologize for. After Sam left, the apartment felt lighter. Not empty, not lonely, just still. The kind of stillness that settles into the bones when the background hum finally stops. When you realize you've been bracing for impact for years, and now, nothing's coming. I didn't clean up, didn't rush to call anyone. I sat back on the couch and just breathed, in, out, like my body finally remembered it could. The next morning, I opened my laptop and made a quiet decision. It was time to reclaim my life. I went into my old digital folders and began deleting things. The shared calendar I used to manage birthdays and family events? Gone. Reminders to order flowers for Mother's Day and Father's Day? Canceled. Auto transfers set to support emergencies? Disabled. Then I created something new, a folder in my inbox, labeled in all caps. Personal only. No guilt, no rescue missions, no obligations disguised as love. That week, I did small things that felt oddly monumental. I took a walk without my phone, cooked dinner just for myself, said no to a coworker who asked me to cover her shift for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. And no one noticed, but I did. Conversations with my parents became shorter, polite, controlled. They called on holidays, texted sometimes. The tone had changed. It was careful now, measured. There were no more jokes about me buying everyone's affection. No passive-aggressive comments about forgetting someone's birthday. Just civility. A strange kind of peace that didn't need fixing. Sam didn't reach out, and I didn't either. Not because I was holding a grudge, but because I was holding a boundary. And for the first time, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like safety. One afternoon, while organizing an old file drawer, I found a photo. A family trip to the lake, 7 years ago. Everyone was smiling. Sam, of course, front and center, Mom's hand on her shoulder, Dad grinning. And there I was, off to the side, half in frame, holding the camera remote, tired in the eyes. That year, I'd paid for the entire trip, the lake house deposit, the repairs on the rental van, even the groceries. And still, somehow, I was the one behind the lens. I looked at that version of myself and didn't feel anger. I felt recognition. She tried, she carried, she showed up again and again. And no one asked if it was too heavy. That night, I roasted vegetables, grilled chicken, poured a single glass of wine. No phone calls, no interruptions, just the soft ticking of the oven as it cooled and the creak of old wood under my chair. Peace didn't arrive with fireworks. It didn't announce itself or ask to be celebrated. It simply showed up, quietly, unapologetically, and made a home in the space I had finally cleared. The suggestion came from Monica, my lawyer. A mediation. Not to fix what couldn't be fixed, but to make space for what had never been spoken. If you're willing, she said, it could help reset the dynamic, not for them, for you. I hesitated. But something in me, maybe the part that still believed in clean endings, said yes. The session was held in a small, windowless conference room above Monica's office. Neutral ground, gray carpet, a table too big for 4 people, chairs that creaked when you breathed too deep. The mediator was a woman named Delane, early 50s, warm eyes, voice like velvet over steel. She greeted each of us the same way, gently but without coddling. Mom and Dad arrived together, folded hands, eyes red, no hostility, just weariness. Sam was last, gray sweater, no makeup. She didn't speak when she entered, didn't look at me. Delane opened the session with one sentence. We're not here to place blame, we're here to see what's true. No one responded, and so she began. Mom went first. She talked about fear, how hard it had been to watch her daughters drift apart, how she missed the way things used to be, even if they'd never really been that way. Dad spoke only when asked. He said he wished he'd handled things differently, that he'd waited too long to act, that he thought he was protecting everyone, but knew now he was just delaying the inevitable. Then it was Sam's turn. She stared at the table, picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Her voice, when it came, was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I didn't mean for it to get that far. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. I convinced myself it would all work out, because it always had. She admitted to using the accounts, to transferring money, to lying. She said she was scared, that she'd felt like everything disappeared at once, home, support, identity. No one interrupted her. There were long pauses between her words, but no one rushed to fill them. And then finally it was my turn. I sat with the weight of it all for a moment, then said what needed to be said. This isn't about a loan, or a spreadsheet, or even the house. It's about a pattern. Years of giving without acknowledgement. Years of being the fallback plan. I told them about the photo, the one where I was only half in the frame. How symbolic it felt now. How I had lived my life on the edge of the picture, holding everything steady while no one noticed I was disappearing. I explained the trust, the conditions, the finality of it. You will never lose your home, but I will not lose myself again trying to keep everyone else afloat. There were no tears. Only truth, soft, plain, undeniable. When the session ended, no one hugged. No one promised to start over. We just gathered our papers, nodded our thank yous, and stepped out into the hallway. Later that week, a card arrived in the mail. From Mom. One line. You gave us more than we ever saw. A few days after that, a text from Dad. Not words, just a photo. The old maple tree in the backyard, lit by dusk, porch lights glowing behind it. I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't even closure. But it was acknowledgement. And sometimes that's enough. Spring came quietly. No announcements, no breakthroughs, just longer days, softer mornings, and the slow return of green to the trees outside my window. Life didn't transform overnight, it unfolded, piece by piece. I learned to stop checking for updates, stopped looking for signs of change from people who had already shown me who they were. The silence between me and Sam didn't feel sharp anymore. It wasn't anger, it wasn't bitterness. It was clean. Through the small-town grapevine, I heard she'd picked up a second job, that she was living in a modest apartment near the river, that she was managing. For once, no one asked me to step in, and I didn't offer, not out of cruelty, but because finally I knew where I ended and where everyone else began. One weekend, I visited the lake alone. I hadn't been back since college. This time, there was no rental van, no family itinerary, just a picnic blanket, a book, and the warmth of the sun on my shoulder. No one asked where I was. No one called needing help. There was no emergency waiting on the other side of the day. It was just me, present, uninterrupted, whole. That Monday, I opened a new account, titled it Future Fund. Not for rent, not for someone else's tuition or overdue car bill, just mine. A quiet promise to myself, this time I would build something just for me. 2 weeks later, an email arrived. The sender, my cousin Mark, subject line, "We should talk." He'd heard about the trust. He said Sam was struggling. He thought maybe there was a way to soften the boundaries. I met him for coffee. He looked older than I remembered, worn down by being stuck in the middle, maybe. He spoke kindly but hesitantly. Said he understood why I did what I did, but thought Sam felt abandoned. I let him talk. Then I said what I've never said out loud. Boundaries aren't about punishment, they're about protection. And sometimes the person they protect most is the one who finally says no. He nodded, and for once nobody asked me to bend. That night I sat by my window with the lights off, watching the city move in silence. No messages, no expectations, no weight hanging in the air, asking to be carried. I breathed in that space, that choice. And for the first time, it wasn't borrowed peace. It was mine. A month later, I removed myself from the last family group chat. No dramatic exit, no goodbye text. Just a quiet step back, like someone closing a door softly so no one wakes up. That summer, I built new rhythms. I made dinner for one. I took long walks in the mornings. I said no without guilt. I said yes without explanation. My parents still call, sometimes. We talk about tomatoes in the garden, a new soup recipe. It's light, it's distant, but it doesn't ache anymore. And Sam? She stays quiet. And I let her. Not because I've stopped caring, but because I've finally learned love doesn't mean sacrifice without end. It means knowing your own worth, even when no one else does. So now when someone says, "But she's your sister," I just smile and reply, "I was hers too, until I learned how to be mine." I used to think love meant giving until there was nothing left of me. But I've learned, real love doesn't drain you, it holds you, it honors your limits. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is draw a line. Not to keep people out, but to keep yourself whole. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever felt like the invisible glue holding everyone else together, you're not alone, you never were. Subscribe to Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending for more true stories that remind us. Sometimes healing starts the moment we stop apologizing for choosing peace.